Welcome back, fight fans, to another Vegas Odds recap show. I am Garrett Kerman, and with me, as always, is my man, Joe Danger himself, Jessie Hobson. What's up, man? How's it going?
It's hot. It's too damn hot. My AC went out, so if you notice my red cheeks, it's not because I'm delivering presents. It's because it's hot. So yeah, happy to kind of hot like your picks this weekend, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, we killed it out there. 7 for 8, numerous underdogs, a lot of prop bets. I mean, it was a good night. I was not expecting as good of a night as we had because I thought there was a very lackluster card. But sometimes those are little bright spots, and we had a little bright spot there.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to some people while the card was kind of going down, and one of our viewers actually, Forrest. I was talking to him and some other buddies, and I was like, this card is actually a sleeper. You take away the main event, and oddly enough, there's so much talent on this card. A lot of regional guys, guys that are getting kind of their shine, or getting a second shot. So I was actually really pleased with the card as a whole, outside of the main event. Ultimately,
there was only a few lackluster fights, maybe like 3 or 4, but the rest of the card actually delivered. It was a really good put together card. I just thought it was like, going into it, looking at it, I'm like, how the hell am I gonna bet on this card? But eventually I found some good spots, and it all worked out in the end.
From just a viewer's perspective, it was a lot of fun to kind of get to know a lot of these guys. There was on a different level. There was a lot of finishes, so we had a lot of time for them to talk on the mic. It was just a good opportunity all around.
So let's get to break it down and recapping of what went down. Let's start with the main event in the split decision win for Ketlen Vieira over Holly Holm. A lot of controversy in this fight. So what were your thoughts? Who do you think actually won? Was that the right call?
So off the air, you and I kind of discussed this after our last recap show, and we both agreed that the line was way too wide. Ketlen Vieira, I think she did win the fight. I'm enjoying the fact that these judges are not allowing fighters to lay and pray or just hold them against the fence. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys saw my post. It was question mark kick, flurry punches and scream, hold against the fence and rinse repeat. Holly Holm is it's time to make way for these new contenders, these new girls, these new fighters. Yeah, it just was a lackluster performance. Ring rust to the max. Ketlen does what Ketlen does. But yeah, I thought she looked good. Ultimately, the biggest stinker on the card as far as keeping my interest, but the fact that I had some money, some skin in the game, made it a little bit more interesting for me.
Yeah, it was not the best fight, but it was the exact fight kind I saw. I knew it was going to be an extremely close fight. Win or lose, that's where I thought the line was completely off. I thought it was going to look like a pick'em fight, so you were getting a ton of value on Vieira plus 205. That's where I was able to, snag her at. The fight could have gone either way. I understand both sides of the spectrum. Holly was getting a lot of clinch work. She was getting a lot of control time, but at distance, she was not fighting very well. She was not fighting like herself. She didn't look like the Hall of Fame boxer that we all knew she was. And you look at her previous 3 wins before coming into this fight, she was attempting 21 takedowns. That's unheard of considering what her strengths are, and that's in her striking. But then she turns into this wrestler, this grappler, and I just don't think she can stand at distance without getting hit anymore. As you see, Ketlen was able to land a ton.
Got you saying it now.
Yeah, I know. And she was she was getting some good work in there. She was the one that was landing the harder shots. I mean, she almost got the finish in round 2. She was the only one close enough to getting a finish in the entire fight.
I would actually argue that she won the fight twice because there was a fence grab followed by a light tap, and then and then she won the decision. I saw Holly's head snap back way more than it did, or way more than I did Ketlen's. And then also something that I wanted to point out, I think you were kind of getting there, but I wanted to make the point because, I'm the analyst on this show. Holly Holm, she's much slower than she used to be. So when she's making these like running attempts at, hitting you 3 or 4 times, I think a lot of times in the past she was faster. So even though those shots weren't connecting, they were being counted as significant strikes.
Right.
Now that she's slower, we can see her miss more vividly, like it's in our face. So I think that really hurt her in the eyes of the judges. Obviously the submission attempt did too, but her being slower, I think, ultimately hurts her when it does go to decision. At least that's kind of what it seemed like anyway.
Right. And then, also the number one scoring criteria is damage. And if you look
Yes.
at damage per round, Ketlin was the one landing the damaging shots from at least from rounds 2 to 4. I think Holly, came back in round 5 and looked a lot better. She was throwing better. She was connecting. And round 1, I mean, it was pretty much stalemate when it comes to damage, and she was just controlling against the fence. But between rounds 2 and 4, Ketlin was definitely landing the much heavier shots. And then you also look at the stats. I know stats don't really mean much because judges don't see stats, but over 1/3 of the significant strikes landed from home were leg kicks or body attacks. Majority of the strikes landed for Ketlin were head strikes and landed almost 20 more head strikes than Holly Holm.
Yeah.
Snapping the head back, looking more damaging when she's landing the strikes. That's all in Ketlin's favor. And like I said, the number one scoring criteria is damage. So damage is definitely on Vieira's side versus Holly Holmes. And then the good thing is, at least the judges were consistent with their judging throughout the entire night, because Eric Anders also lost a very close split decision the same exact way that Holly Holm lost. But the thing is, with Anders, he was actually landing damaging shots, unlike Holly Holm. They were at least consistent when it comes to not rewarding the control time, although I do think Eric Anders should have kind of gotten that win there. It was close. I understand the argument. I can't call it a robbery. I can't call the other one a robbery either. But they're both very, close split decisions. But the next split decision was in the co-main event between Michelle Pereira and Santiago Ponzinibbio. Who'd you have winning in that fight? I honestly didn't think it was as close as they thought it out to be.
Michelle Pereira. I thought he won the fight. The only thing that was weird about it was he was kind of always on his back foot. He was always shifting left to right, which is the way he fights. He never did his Superman punch off the cage, which very much surprised me. It was really nice to see such a composed version of him. We're not used to that. Also, too, Ponzinibbio has eye gouged more people in the UFC.
Yes. I don't know how this guy's still in the UFC, just eye gouging everybody. Almost every single fight. I was going to tweet it out, but it was too late. But I'm like, this man is still eye gouging people. This is crazy.
Yeah, and he uses it to his advantage. He's won fights where he's gouged someone's eyes out.
Yes, he did.
And yeah,
I remember that vividly.
Me too. I had money on it, and I was disappointed.
Too. I was.
But it was interesting too, because everyone's praising this fight as fight of the night. I mean, obviously it did win fight of the night, but I thought it was sloppy, especially in round 3. The guys could barely contain themselves. It was kind of odd. Obviously Michelle is a big boy. He is carrying around a lot of muscle. And, he's going to keep moving up in these ranks. And that's not going to fly once he starts fighting some of these world-class guys, once he gets in the top 10, top 5. I mean, he might get lucky, but at the same time, he's going to have to work on his gas tank or just work it out a little bit better. He looked good in rounds 1 and 2. Ponzinibbio kind of took over round 2. But at the same time, I just felt like Michelle was in control the entire time. He knew what he was doing, and he just looked bigger. I think he was trying to save his gas tank for round 3, but ultimately couldn't do it for the entire round.
I agree with that. I thought he won rounds 1 and 2 kind of fairly, certain. I mean, I didn't think it was really a question. Round 3, I thought he lost. He definitely faded, like we all knew he would. He looked fresh coming into round 3, but then once the exchanges started happening and Ponzinibbio actually starting to land in round 3, that's when game plan went out the window for Pereira, and he was throwing wild shots, and he just, was overexerting himself and was starting to gas himself out. Ultimately, he got the win. I thought he was impressive, but like you said, he's definitely going to need to step up his game because, once he, start getting to the upper echelon, it's going to be different, especially once he gets that, 5-round slot, which eventually will happen. I don't expect It'll be interesting to see what happens after round 3, because
Yeah.
I know for a fact if the first fight that he fights 5 rounds, I am betting on the opposite person to win in rounds 4 and 5, just because of the fact that we don't know how his gas stick is going to be. And we already know his gas stick is bad in round 3. So I'll definitely gonna take a shot on those 2 props whenever that eventually happens. But as far as the rest of this fight card goes, I'm gonna go a different route here instead of going up and down the fight card. Let's go with some stock risers. Let's look at guys that I feel have their stock has risen, and I'll look at some of the fighters that I think their stock has fallen. So obviously the first one's got to be Chidi Njokwani. I mean, that elbow was insane. That was a slicing elbow that probably would have deaded in literally anybody. That was extremely impressive.
He's came a long way, man. It's actually pretty. It's insane, really. I mean, he was able to withstand the takedowns for the most part, which, I mean, Dusko is really good. Like that the odds were extremely wide in this fight. I was immediately regretting my bet,
I know,
like a
seconds
minute in. And but yeah, as soon in his elbow is so sneaky for how long his arms are. Like in boxing, right? They separate you, and there are those fighters that will separate before the refs separate. He kind of does that as well. Like he gets close in the clinch, and then he'll separate himself and get the elbow perfectly where it needs to be. It was one of the most beautiful things I had seen. I was just a little disappointed that we didn't get to see more of him.
Right.
We got to see just enough. We got to see that he's working on his jiu-jitsu. He tried to get the sub. He's withstanding these crazy takedowns. Yeah, and then we saw the beautiful elbow. I just want to see more of the guy. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. And I also loved how much him and his brother celebrated together. That was something special. This guy's from Garland, Texas, right outside of Dallas. I mean, this guy's practically my neighbor. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for Chidi Bang Bang and Njokwani. Yeah. So who's your next riser on this card?
My next riser is going to be, and I'm going to jump around because I have to mention Chase Hooper.
Yes, yes, you do. Absolutely.
Watch out, shit. Russia! Watch out, Russia! Man. We have our Khabib here.
Chase Hooper, man, who would have thought? That was impressive.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about his stand-up. I was really impressed with his stand-up.
Wow.
Obviously, he handled Felipe in the stand-up on the ground. I feel like the only person that hurt him was himself, because a lot of his submission attempts were like sloppy, like it was like 101 stuff, and but I think he was just kind of grooving, like he was
right.
Can I do this? Can I try this? And obviously winning by K. I mean, who would have thought, that this kid wins by KO? I mean, I've been a fan of his since Contender. The dude has a chin. The kid can take a beating, and then now he's starting to kind of learn how to put one together himself, on the other end. What do you think of the fight? Obviously, you liked it.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought it was great. I mean, he dominated from bell to bell. He went in there, did what he had to do. He was successful on the feet, successful on the mat, and it was just great to see him make such improvements. And I feel like maybe him fighting on a fight night and not being in the limelight and with the fans, maybe that helped him in a way. Maybe he needed that to get back on track, and he did great, and it was a great performance. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for him, and I hope he keeps getting better and better, because he's arguably one of the most likable guys, obviously, on the roster. The dude is super chill, super funny, and everybody loves him. So I only wish nothing for the best for him, and I want to see him succeed. And he's putting it all together, so I'm very excited to see what comes next for him.
Well, I will say this: it was very odd that he was. You mentioned that it was nice that maybe fighting in the Apex might have kind of helped him a little bit. I also think that being an underdog in this fight might have put a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Like I actually have to prove myself. And he definitely did.
My next riser's got to be Halton Almeida. I mean, golly, my man Almeida goes in there and makes absolute quick work of Parker Porter. It was destruction from start to finish. He took him down, methodically beat his ass, eventually got his back, and that's all she wrote. I mean, he needs to get to your back once, and he's taking your neck and he's choking you out. It's just the inevitable. That was impressive. And this man can go up and down between 205 and heavyweight. He's got size, he's got power, he's got speed. Man, this dude's a fucking problem.
I didn't really know what to expect, honestly, because I like Parker Porter. Sorry, is I mean, he's decent. Like, he's a decent heavyweight fighter.
Yes.
And I mean, he's a big boy too. So the fact that Almeida was able to get him down so eloquently and easily and sub him, like, it was a thing of beauty. So you have this guy that's traditionally a light heavyweight doing work in there, and it was a sight to see. Like, it was one of those question marks on the card, and the dude delivered.
Yeah. I was looking forward to it because I knew what he was capable of, and I wanted to see what he could do at heavyweight. So this man literally can go up and down. So, I mean, he's a legitimate contender in 205. He's a legitimate contender in 205 for sure, because there's not a lot of of great fighters at 205, and he can really sky through that entire division fairly quickly. Yeah, but running down the rest of these risers, I kind of have. I'm looking at Uros Medic. Great knockout of Omar Morales. He came back. He looked great there. Looked composed. Showed that he can go past round one. Still had the gas tank. Super impressed there. And then Joseph Holmes made quick work of Alan Almadowski. That knee that set him down. And then got the rear naked choke. It was kind of exactly how I envisioned happening. So he got his first win in the UFC. Uros Medic got the knockout, and I expect big things from them coming up.
Yeah, the only other comment as far as, like, I guess, rising stock, I mean, this might even just be kind of even stock, is a lot of people were doubting Jonathan Martinez in this card. And I really didn't understand it. I was like, while he, is more of a point fighter, I guess, in a sense, he's not really ever looking for the finish unless it just kind of comes to him. There was a lot of people on Morales this fight. And me personally, I just couldn't see it happening. And Martinez did his thing. He beat up his leg the entire time and therefore took away Morales's power. It was a fantastic, brutal beatdown from, round one to, round three. And, I wouldn't expect anything less from Jonathan Martinez. Another vote for Pedro victory.
Yeah, it was definitely a good performance by him. He was smart. He utilized his leg kicks and calf kicks and was able to keep at distance, stay away from the power right hand of Vince Morales, and got the job done. Unfortunately, it was overshadowed by some good finishes, but it was still a good performance, good all around 15-minute dominant win for Martinez, and you can expect him to get a good bump up in competition. He's already 16-4 in his career, so maybe a fringe top 15 opponent, maybe next in his cards. We'll see.
Yeah, he's like sneaky good. He's also very likable. I couldn't see anything else but a dominant performance, and so I was happy that he did that. Good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. On the decline, well, I'm just gonna run through them quick. That I feel like we may have seen the last of them. I'll probably say Dushko Todorovic. We may have seen the last of him. Unfortunately, took another L. That would be 3 L's in his last 4 fights, and if I'm not mistaken. And then another one will probably be Poliana Viana, just because of the fact that it was just a terrible performance, flopping to your back, not trying to get up, fishing for submissions against a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. And she looked good on the feet, and somehow she would just falter back and try to play jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I did not like that.
It was bad. That was bad.
Yeah.
I know that Alan Abadowski is definitely gone from the UFC. We'll just put it that way. He's no more for him. 0-3. He's getting the boot. And I would not be surprised if we've seen the last of Omar Morales and Eric Anders.
Yeah, Eric Anders is a tough one for me because I saw that dude win the belt live in Houston for LFA, and the guy has so much potential, but he just can't seem to evolve. He's doing the same things that he did in LFA. Do you remember when he was the main event? What was it, in Brazil? Was it in Brazil?
Yeah, against the Lyoto Machida.
Yeah, and he couldn't do anything then either. It was it was a ghost of Machida. He's still doing the same things that he did then. Although I do think that he won this fight, I don't think he deserved it because no judge on that particular fight actually agreed on a round. Every judge had a different scorecard, all three judges. That's weird all in itself. But with him, he didn't capitalize. Like he had so many opportunities to steal or seal that fight, and he just did the same thing that Anders does, and drags it to a decision, and he ultimately paid the biggest price that he could.
Another loss. I mean, I think he won against Darren Stewart, but also another lackluster performance, even with a win. I mean, it doesn't do much. He's just a middle of the pack fighter at this point, and it'll be interesting. I don't know if they're going to keep him. Really, I don't.
Well, he said he wants to fight 2 more years, and I'm like, dude, what do you mean 2 more years? Like, you're still young. You just have to learn. You have to evolve. Like, if he had a right hand, then he'd be so much better. Like, I like the fact that he went for so many takedowns, but finish them. Like, keep going and use that right hand. Set it up, dude. Like, what are you doing? But again, I think he did enough to win that fight. It just, and like you said, at least the judges were consistent. And if they're going to be consistent, then I would much rather have won the main event.
Yeah, me too. So I'm like comparing. I'm like, yeah, I'll take Caitlin, at plus 205. I just knew the line was off, and I feel like that line should have been closer, and it showed that it should have been closer.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
Unfortunately, we didn't get the right call. It happens.
And it sucks because he's another good guy. Talked to him at the LFA show, and that was before he even knew he was going to the UFC. Yeah, I don't know, man. I hope he adds something to his game because I think he has it, and obviously he has the traps. But maybe he just needs to put down the weights and start laying on the ground with Pollyanna or whatever her name is.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, that's what we got for you guys for this week's Vegas Odds recap show. But before we go, my man Joe Danger, Jessie Hobson, where can everybody find you?
You can find me in Houston, Texas. You can find me in them streets. You can find me at the club. You can find me hanging out with Garrett, Kerman, and because either way we're going to be catching those tickets. So stay tuned to Joe_Danger, Houston MMA, the Fight Analyst, and yeah, we'll just keep catching those tickets, Daddy.
Absolutely, guys. Go like and subscribe to the VegasOdds YouTube channel.